Good morning. I think I call it the usual culprits group. I think you see the same set of people who are concerned about these three, four critical issues facing digital and the digital economy, especially in India. So, Deepak, Shubho, Mishi, Osama, and I think a few faces are missing, but that's the gang that I always see. And we've been seeing this over last 3 to 4 years. It's not something that has recently happened or the change in power in May 2014 has prompted, but this has been going on. Um, I have a few perspectives to add. I've just seen the report, and I think, as Shubho said, releasing the report didn't mean we probably endorse the report. I want to start with that. I want to read the report before I understand whether it captures the issues correctly or not. But a few things that Osama wanted me to talk about, and I will talk about that. It's the digital agenda. I think I don't need to repeat, has been one of the priority agendas of the government. Um, you know, the sensitivity of the government becoming more online, more social media friendly is perhaps the highest. I know Mahima is here from Twitter. We had a big discussion. I was there in the Twitter headquarters 2 weeks ago, and a big discussion around how do you make it more gender equal, how do you make it more accessible on different languages. Um, I think those are things that we need to bring about and discuss a lot more contextual to India. And I would have liked to see that more in the report. How are we making this more language accessible? What should be the recommendations in reducing the gender equality? How do you make a more safer internet? Because in my opinion, the target of any the comments or things seem to be the state or the government blocking. The government has done one blocking last year in December around this time. I am actually quoted in this report on that. Because we were being, it is a simple thing as what got blocked and what got reported. Some leaked papers were floating around, what websites have been floated. So instead of rumors, we brought out the facts. It is after a year, it has come true that how ISIS is using the internet more effectively as more governments in the world. So I won't comment on that issues, but today the real issue is government being one player, it's facilitator. As users, as a user community, which is primarily what the internet is all about, how are we making safer for them? How are we encouraging more gender gap to be reduced on the internet? How are we making users be more aware that what kind of privacy rights you have and what kind of privacy data is being compromised every day by applications, by digital conglomerates globally? And how do you make a safer environment for users to operate? Internet is all about users. Government is just one participant in that. It's an enabler, in my opinion. And as Johan said, EU or any country in the world today will agree with the digital amplification, the leapfrogging digital is doing in everything. In our country, it's going to be 10 times bigger because we are starting from ground zero in most of the things. So having said that, the second point I do want to make is, is about India being perceived globally in the absolute number of the list that the transparency reports that come out from Google, Facebook, XYZ. I would encourage some of the civil rights and especially the human rights groups who would work on that, and I am not the expert, to really figure out the per usage, the increases we have had on the internet base in the last 1.5 years, and what kind of increasing of government and legally combined blocking has happened. Because what we understand, and I'm being a we here as a community, is a lot of takedown orders or blocking orders are coming from lower level courts where the government is acting as merely as a implementing authority. And if somebody could study that, I think that will be an interesting thing to study, uh, especially with the context of India and vis-a-vis the number of increase of user base that has happened in India. So, we understand more than 100 million internet users have been added over the last 15 months in India. The IAMI report did confirm that, right? So how is that how is that in proportion to the takedown or the blocking requests that are happening, and the number of accounts that have been blocked, XYZ, and all that stuff. And thirdly, you talked about cybersecurity, and there's a lot of mention of cybersecurity in the brief report, at least. Uh, I think cybersecurity has become one of the biggest imperatives of the current government, not only from a digital agenda, but also in general as a diplomatic issue. I think as a one of the biggest international issues today, the world is trusting India a lot more to provide the cybersecurity leadership, both at platform levels, at governance level, and a lot has happened. I mean, our whole internet governance paradigm has shifted a lot in last 12 months. For those of you who follow that, you see that we have become very proactive. We are making our voice felt at every international fora, and I think the world is recognizing the power both on the governance aspect, on the internet, as well as on the security and the cyber security and the privacy aspects, that India, the leadership role India should play in there. So that has been something that I think, being the second biggest user base in the world right now, and potentially being the highest user base which is in an open society, I think we should demand our place in the global internet governance platforms, and I think we are doing that. A related discussion to that, and you did bring about digital democracies in your debate, is that how the, how the platforms, and this is related to net neutrality, and I'll bring that angle, how the how today we are becoming dependent on all the social media and the international platforms. How is our domestic democracy getting controlled by platforms which are not in our control? I think that's a very important discussion point to be had in the context of India. You see, all platforms are not governed by international, by Indian laws at least. And today, 90% of our debates are political debates, and where we see the 2019 elections heading to, or even any other political discourse heading to, is from a 33% on the internet, it is heading to 66% on the internet, if not more. So when the context becomes that, in a very digital democracy, how important it is to keep the platform governance, and how localized that should be. And we have a lot of legal luminaries over here to tell us how we should do that. I mean, that's a very big issue. And I don't see a discussion on that in terms of platform governance. I would like to see a lot more of that, again, contextual to India, not this global platform governance. I think what is relevant to India, how digital rights and digital democracies have to be protected in India, when there is no legal representation of these platforms in India, there is no legal rights that these platforms claim to in India. I know one company, without naming it, when they last, in the previous regime, they were, they were asked and hauled up for certain. They're saying, we only have a marketing office in India. We don't even have a main office in India. We just have a liaison office in India. So we don't comply by any Indian laws. So I'm not saying good or bad. We need to address that issue. These are the points I'm bringing about. And the last thing I do want to mention before I close is something that I think, Sama, you mentioned, and you wanted, whereas we would want a very transparent report on blocking, and I think because the answer that I will give may not be acceptable to everybody. I think it's important to do a RTI on finding out how many of the blocks that have happened over the last 16 to 18 months. I'm concerned about from May or June, since our government has come into play, have been political, have been political nature, or secondly legal or order oriented, where the DOT or the DIT have acted as a implementing authority, or have been of public disorder in nature. I saw something mentioned about Jammu and Kashmir and things like that. So let's bifurcate that and then deep dive into that, because to me it seems like not much significant, or not any actually blocking has happened from a political nature, which was very prevalent before. So the real freedom of speech, freedom of expression has not happened, despite a lot of discussions on many things. I am releasing a report which actually has, so that's the example of tolerance, has something mentioned not positively about me myself. So I don't think so. That has been the case. The government is very sensitive to this. It's an open platform. Everybody needs to discuss that. But there has been, as I said, a few instances where there have been court orders, especially related to security and security considerations, and they have been, and that is something I will 100% agree with. That's a black hole. A lot of things are put under national security and probably wrongly represented, and we should deep dive into that. That's my submission. With that, I will conclude what I had to say, but I'm around, so if any discussion is there, I'll be happy to participate in that.